You've spent your life being agreeable, but the cost was silence. Not theirs. Yours. A silence that swallowed your needs, your voice, your truth. Now the question is, how much more of yourself are you willing to trade for acceptance? Each time you say yes, when you really want to say no, each time you bite your tongue instead of speaking up, each time you put aside your own needs just to avoid disappointing someone, you lose a little more of yourself. Maybe you believe you're being generous. Maybe you've learned to take pride in being the dependable one, the person who's always there. But let's be honest, that's not selflessness. That's self-abandonment. You've spent so long trying to make others happy that you've completely lost touch with who you really are. And the hardest part? This pattern runs on autopilot. Without even realizing it, you walk into a room and immediately start scanning. What are they feeling? What do they expect from me? You adjust your tone, your words, your posture, not because it feels right, but because deep down you're afraid not to. You crave that nod, that smile, that subtle signal that says, you still belong. But this need comes at a steep price. You start leaking your energy into situations that don't serve you. Your time, your most limited and precious resource, gets consumed in the exhausting effort to maintain a sense of peace that, deep down, isn't even real. And your own wants? They always end up on the back burner. Delayed. Suppressed. Silenced. Carl Jung called this state identification with the persona, the social mask we adopt to fit in. The persona is that which in reality one is not, but which oneself as well as others think one is. And the more tightly you cling to that mask, the farther you drift from your true self. Here's what makes it worse. This pattern isn't just a social reflex, it's a defense. A subconscious strategy for avoiding what scares you most. When you stay hidden behind the mask, you don't have to face what's underneath it, the shadow. The part of you that holds the anger, the frustration, the need for space, the desire to say, that's enough. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. As long as you avoid the shadow, it continues to run your life quietly, from the background. And what feeds this whole loop? The illusion that your worth depends on being liked. That if others accept you, then your life has meaning. But the truth is both uncomfortable and liberating. You can't, and shouldn't, live your life trying to please everyone. In this video, we'll uncover the hidden psychological forces that keep you stuck in this exhausting cycle. We'll look at how your social mask, and the constant drive to be accepted, quietly sabotage your authenticity. And most importantly, we'll explore how to finally break free and begin the process of true individuation, the journey of becoming who you were always meant to be. Individuation means becoming an individual, and insofar as individuality embraces our innermost, last, and incomparable uniqueness, it also implies becoming one's own self. This path won't be easy. You'll have to face fears you've buried, emotions you've tried to avoid, and truths you may have run from for years. But if you're willing to move through that discomfort, what you'll gain is far greater than anyone's approval. You'll reclaim your inner freedom. You weren't born to please. But somewhere along the way, you learned that you had to. Maybe it started in childhood, when you realized that certain feelings, like anger, sadness, or frustration, weren't welcome. Maybe you picked up the message that love had strings attached. Be good. Don't cause trouble. Keep everyone happy, and then you'll be accepted. That's where the cycle begins, an invisible loop of self-sacrifice that starts as survival and quietly becomes a trap. You begin to live in a constant state of emotional alert. Without realizing it, you scan every room you walk into, reading faces, sensing shifts in tone, anticipating what's expected. You become skilled at giving people what they want, even when they don't ask for it. And before any tension can surface, you've already smoothed it over, with a smile, a favor, a quick apology, even if it chips away at your peace. Why do you do this? Because somewhere deep inside, your nervous system has linked emotional safety to other people's approval. And when that approval is withdrawn, when you're criticized, ignored, or excluded, something inside you panics and whispers, you don't belong. And few things cut deeper than that. This fear of being left out, of not being accepted, is one of the oldest, most deeply rooted fears we carry. But when this need to belong becomes distorted, it leads to compensation. You start proving your worth by sacrificing yourself, hoping that if you give enough, stay small enough, help often enough, you'll finally be enough. You start chasing your sense of worth by giving parts of yourself away. It's a misguided attempt to feel accepted, one that costs more than you realize. Each time you say yes, when you really want to say no, you reinforce a certain version of yourself, the always available one, the helper, the good one. And the more you show up like that, the more people come to expect it. And the more they expect it, the harder it becomes to stop. Because now, setting a boundary doesn't just disappoint them, it shatters the identity you've built. So you keep going, and little by little, you start to disappear. Time you could use to grow, rest, or create gets devoured by obligations that were never truly yours. The energy that could fuel your own life is constantly rerouted toward keeping other people comfortable. And maybe you don't even realize it's happening. Maybe you've convinced yourself you like helping, that being useful gives you purpose, that saying no would be selfish. But if you pause for just a moment, you'll hear it. That dull exhaustion. That quiet resentment. That buried voice that keeps asking, "What about me?" And that voice won't go away until you listen, until you finally break the cycle. But here's the real question. Why is it so hard to stop? Why do we keep repeating this behavior, even when we know it's hurting us? The answer lies deeper, in something Jung called the persona. If this resonates with you, consider subscribing to the channel. Your support helps bring these ideas to more people who need them. Thank you. Let's go a little further. Have you ever asked yourself why, even when you know you're betraying your own needs, you still keep trying to please? Why saying no feels almost dangerous? Why a disappointed glance, a subtle disapproval, or the fear of being misunderstood can instantly pull you back into compliance? It's because you're not just reacting, you're protecting an identity you've spent your life building. A mask. Carl Jung called it the persona, the version of ourselves we craft to survive in the world. It's not inherently bad. We all wear masks. In fact, we need them. They help us function in society. Without them, we'd be like children, raw, unfiltered, unable to navigate expectations. But the real trouble starts when the mask takes over. When you forget that you ever existed without it. If you don't recognize this cycle for what it is, you'll keep spinning in it. You'll try to be more assertive, to finally put yourself first, but the guilt will creep in. The shame. The fear of letting someone down. And just like that, you'll slip back into old habits, saying yes when you mean no, staying quiet when you want to speak, wearing the mask that keeps everyone else comfortable, except you. That's why real transformation doesn't happen on the surface. It requires going beneath the persona and facing what it's been hiding all along, your shadow. In the next section, we'll explore exactly that. You'll learn why saying no feels so dangerous, not because it actually is, but because it touches something much older, something buried in your unconscious. And you'll see why facing your shadow isn't just helpful, it's the key to breaking free from the cycle of self-sacrifice. By now, you've started to see the mask. But what's holding it in place? It's the invisible pull, the deep, unspoken need to be accepted. You might think you just like keeping the peace or being agreeable. But the truth is deeper and more uncomfortable. This desire to belong isn't logical. It isn't even conscious. It's wired into your nervous system, shaped by the earliest moments of your life. As a child, being accepted wasn't optional, it was survival. To be included meant safety. To be left out, whether emotionally or physically, felt like danger. And even if you grew up in a loving environment, you may have absorbed this pattern from those around you. People who constantly put others first, who avoided conflict, who kept their real feelings hidden. That programming didn't just fade with age, it stayed. As Alfred Adler's theory of individual psychology explains, every human being is driven by a fundamental need to belong and to be valued by their community. That in itself isn't a flaw, it's part of being human. The problem begins when that healthy desire mutates into a belief. My worth depends on how others see me. I must meet their expectations to be worthy of love. And when that belief takes hold, your freedom begins to slip away. You stop living your life. You start living theirs. You start making choices not based on what feels right to you, but based on what you think others expect. What will keep them happy? What will keep you safe? And here's the cruelest part. No matter how hard you try, you will never control what other people think. You can bend yourself to fit. You can people please until you're empty. But there will always be someone who's disappointed, someone who disapproves, someone who sees you differently than you hoped. And the more you chase approval, the more disconnected, exhausted, and hollow you become. And the more you try to shape how others see you, the more anxious, drained, and disconnected you feel. That's the trap. You end up living a life that doesn't actually belong to you. Every time you delay a decision because you're afraid of upsetting someone, every boundary you avoid setting to keep the peace, every truth you swallow just to avoid tension, it all comes at a cost. That's your life force. And you're giving it away. Breaking out of this pattern isn't as simple as deciding to stop. Because the moment you say no, speak up, or start protecting your space, something old and uncomfortable gets stirred up. Guilt, shame, fear. These emotions are the hidden engine behind your need for acceptance. And until you learn how to sit with them, they'll keep pulling you back into the same patterns, again and again. You might even know, on some level, that you're doing too much, giving too much. But when the moment comes, when you're face to face with possible rejection, fear speaks louder than reason. That's why we need to go deeper. In the next section, we'll explore what true freedom really requires. And it's not about becoming more assertive or learning the right scripts. It's about facing the part of yourself you've spent a lifetime avoiding, the shadow. Carl Jung taught that the shadow is made up of all the parts of ourselves we've rejected, suppressed, or disowned. All the emotions and instincts we were taught were wrong, unacceptable, or too much. They didn't vanish. They were just pushed into a dark corner of the psyche. But here's the truth: what's buried doesn't die. It waits. It builds. The more you repress, the more pressure it carries. Unspoken anger turns into bitterness. Unresolved frustration becomes numbness. Unmet desires show up as exhaustion, low moods, or even physical symptoms. And if you've been living a life of constant self-sacrifice, this shadow likely contains the very feelings you've worked hardest to avoid. Your anger, your healthy selfishness, your need for space, your right to choose yourself. Somewhere along the way, you were taught these emotions were dangerous. Maybe you were punished, shamed, or shut down when you expressed them. Maybe you were praised for being the good one, quiet, selfless, easy to please. So you learned to associate your truth with something threatening, something to be hidden. But what's been hidden is still there, and reclaiming it is the first step toward becoming whole. As long as you keep rejecting parts of yourself, you'll keep living only half a life. Every time you say yes, when your heart is screaming no, you're not just trying to be nice, you're reinforcing a pattern of self-erasure. You're sending yourself a message: my needs don't matter. My truth isn't worth hearing. And that message comes with a cost. You start to feel disconnected, not just from others, but from yourself. You lose touch with your spark, your creativity, your capacity for joy. Life becomes something you manage, not something you live. Carl Jung described the path to healing as individuation, the journey of integrating the shadow. It's not about getting rid of your darker parts. It's about facing them, welcoming them in, and understanding they have something to teach you. You have anger. You have selfish impulses. You have limits, real, healthy human limits. Owning that is not weakness. It's courage. But here's the challenge. The moment you start living more honestly, the emotions you've buried rise to the surface. Guilt, shame, fear of letting people down. That's the moment when most people retreat. They go back to smiling, to saying yes, to pretending, just to avoid feeling that emotional storm. But here's the truth: those emotions aren't your enemies. They are the doorway to freedom. Jung reminds us, what you resist not only persists but will grow in size. The more you run from guilt, the more it runs your life. The more you suppress your anger, the more it leaks out, in anxiety, exhaustion, illness, or sudden outbursts. Real liberation comes from moving through these emotions, not avoiding them. Let yourself feel them. Let them pass through you. And know this: Your worth isn't defined by how pleasant or agreeable you are. When you learn to hold guilt, shame, and fear without being ruled by them, you step into a new kind of freedom. A freedom that doesn't depend on applause. A freedom that comes from finally being true to yourself. But insight alone isn't enough. To make this change real, you'll need tools, something to help you rewrite the automatic scripts you've been living by. That's what we'll explore next. By now, you already understand that your people-pleasing comes from a deep, unconscious drive for acceptance. You've seen how the persona, the mask you've built to survive, has kept you from confronting the parts of you that feel too dangerous to reveal. So here it is, the inevitable question: how do you actually begin to break free from this pattern? What does it look like, day by day, to step out of the cycle of self-abandonment and reclaim your sense of self? The answer begins with one essential truth: awareness means nothing without action. It's not enough to recognize the pattern. You have to interrupt it. You have to start doing things differently, and keep doing them, until your nervous system understands that a new way of being is possible. True change doesn't happen all at once. It's not some grand declaration. It's a process of small, deliberate shifts that slowly retrain your system to trust authenticity over appeasement. To support that process, let's explore 4 core strategies, simple, grounded practices that, when repeated consistently, begin to dissolve the habit of self-sacrifice. The first is learning to pause, to insert space between impulse and reaction. Every time you feel yourself slipping into automatic people-pleasing, saying yes too quickly, cushioning your opinion, smiling through discomfort, take one intentional breath. Let the silence stretch just a bit longer than usual. This is a micro act of defiance against the conditioning that says you must always respond, always smooth things over. In that pause, you reclaim your agency, not to be perfect, but to be present. And presence, even for a second, is where transformation begins. The second is training your body to feel safe while setting boundaries. Often, it's not the no that feels dangerous, it's the internal storm that follows. So begin anchoring boundary setting in something physical, standing firmly with both feet on the ground, resting a hand on your chest, or holding your wrist while you speak. These grounding cues calm your nervous system and begin to rewire the fear of rejection. They teach your body that protecting your limits isn't a threat, it's a form of care. The third strategy involves reevaluating the emotional dynamics of your relationships. Notice who consistently drains your energy. Who disappears when you set a limit? Who praises your selflessness but withdraws when you assert a need? This isn't about blame or confrontation, it's about access. You're allowed to adjust how much space people have in your life based on how they treat your boundaries. Relationships rooted in mutual respect will withstand your growth. Those that don't were sustained by your self-erasure. And the fourth is learning to speak from your center, not from guilt or fear. Most of us, conditioned to please, soften our language out of habit. We explain too much. We apologize for needing space. Instead, practice using calm, grounded statements that come from your inner clarity. This doesn't work for me. I've thought about it, and I need to say no. This is where I draw the line. You don't owe elaborate explanations. And if someone resists your new voice, that's not a reason to shrink, it's information. You're not here to manage everyone's comfort. You're here to live in alignment with your truth. And the truth is, not everyone will applaud this shift. Some may feel threatened, confused, even resentful. That's okay. You are not obligated to stay small so others feel secure. Every time you pause instead of reacting, every time you set a limit with steadiness, every time you speak with clarity instead of apology, you're not just protecting your energy, you're laying new foundations for a life of inner freedom. And those moments, however small, are not insignificant. They are proof that you're coming home to yourself. And that's the real beginning. And don't forget, undoing a lifelong pattern like this isn't something that happens overnight. It's not a single breakthrough. It's a slow, ongoing process. There will be moments when you fall back into old habits. Times when you catch yourself saying yes without thinking, or sacrificing your own needs out of instinct. But that doesn't mean you've failed. There's no need to shame yourself. Just notice it. Learn from it. Keep going. As Jung said, Individuation is a process of self-realization unfolding through the integration of unconscious contents into consciousness. It's a journey, not a destination. And every small step you take, every moment of awareness, every boundary honored, matters. Now that you have tangible tools to support this change, there's one final truth that must sink in. Taking care of yourself, your time, your energy, your needs, isn't selfish. It's the foundation of every real, honest relationship you'll ever build.